This incident took place in India. Binu Thomas, known as Sister Abaya, was born on February 26, 1971, in a modest family in the Kattanam region of the Kerala state, India. From an early age, the girl showed a strong inclination towards spirituality and serving others. Those close to her described her as intelligent, honest, determined, and meticulous in every aspect of her life, an altruist. As a teenager, Binu embraced the Catholic faith and joined the Congregation of St. Joseph, founded on July 3, 1928, with the aim of assisting the disabled and the underprivileged. In 1990, at the age of 19, Binu entered the St. Pius X convent, taking the name Abaya, which means peace, love, and fearlessness. Upon her arrival, the young novice earned the respect of her peers and superiors through her calm demeanor and willingness to work. Sister Abaya became one of the most outstanding devotees in the place and was also known for her inclination for learning. Her cherished dream was to prepare for the study of Catholic religious doctrine as soon as possible. In early 1992, Sister Abaya was in her second year of a bachelor's degree program at the Bishop's Women's College, located in the center of Kottayam, which was affiliated with the Mahatma Gandhi University under the administration of the Catholic Church. Sister Abaya divided her time between classes, prayer, and service. She could not have imagined that her deep dedication to her calling would one day lead to her death and the end of all her dreams. On the night of March 26, 1992, Abaya confided her concerns about an important test she was about to take at college to her room neighbor, Sister Shirley. Eager to make the most of the next day to prepare for the test, she asked her roommate to wake her up around 4 a.m. on March 27th. While the sun had not yet dispelled the shadows within the convent's walls, Sister Shirley gently touched Abaya's shoulder to wake her up exactly as requested. Abaya got up and quickly began to get ready to proceed to the room where she usually studied. Still feeling drowsy from a prolonged period of study and prayer, she decided to go to the kitchen and wash her face with cold water. Sister Abaya walked swiftly but quietly, so as not to disturb the other nuns who were still asleep at this hour. Sister Shirley also lay back down on her bed to rest for a little while before getting up to attend to her daily tasks, never suspecting that she had seen her roommate alive for the last time. After sunrise, the first person to enter the convent's kitchen was witness to an unusual scene. The refrigerator door was open, and on the floor lay a bottle from which water was still dripping. Next to the bottle was a small axe, typically used for chopping wood in the convent. A troubling detail was the discovery of a women's slipper under the refrigerator door. Rumors about this discovery quickly filled the convent, and after a swift investigation, it was determined that Sister Abaya had disappeared. The 21-year-old nun had vanished mysteriously, leaving behind only her slipper. The search for her began immediately. Soon it became apparent why no one had seen Sister Abaya since she left her room. Someone had accidentally peered into the water well located in the garden and spotted something that resembled Sister Abaya's body at the bottom. The convent's administration immediately contacted the local police to report this grim discovery. Several police officers arrived at the scene and unsuccessfully attempted to retrieve the girl's body from the well. After several failed attempts, they called the fire department for assistance. Firefighters, using a rope system, managed to pull the battered body of Sister Abaya to the surface. An autopsy, performed by a medical examiner, revealed that the right shoulder and thigh had significant bruises, presumably from the fall into the well. There were 2 small wounds behind her right ear, with the cause of their formation remaining unknown. Furthermore, The forensic report showed no signs of sexual assault on Sister Abaya's body. As a result, the case was registered as an accidental death caused by a fall and drowning. The police station in Kottayam took on the investigation of the circumstances surrounding the death, which was eventually ruled unnatural. The initial police report indicated that the death was a result of the deceased voluntarily jumping into a well. The official stance of the authorities was met with dissatisfaction by both Sister Abaya's relatives and the residents of Kottayam, who expressed their discontent with the progress of the investigation. Furthermore, some members of the monastery believed that Sister Abaya's death was not a tragic accident. On March 31, 1992, at the initiative of the family of the deceased nun, along with the support of various human rights advocates, a council was established to push for the reopening of the case and its investigation as a murder. A few weeks later, on April 13th, the state police's criminal division arrived at the scene and initiated a new investigation. After 10 months of continuous work, on January 30th, 1993, the investigators presented the gathered evidence to the court. The final report continued to assert that the novice had taken her own life. Faced with this outcome, the victim's family, human rights advocates, and various nuns filed complaints and wrote a letter to the then Prime Minister of India. In the letter, it was stated that Sister Abaya had been murdered and her case had not been properly investigated. A year after Sister's death, the efforts of all those working to uncover the truth bore fruit as the case was reopened and transferred to the Central Bureau of Investigation. As the investigation progressed, new evidence emerged. According to the CBI investigators, those involved in the initial stages of the case had a vested interest in portraying the young nun's death as a voluntary end to her life. In 2007, the case took a new turn when the police received information from an unexpected source. A local thief told investigators that on the early morning of March 27, 1992, he had infiltrated the monastery's grounds with the intention of stealing some screws and copper rods from the lightning rod on the roof, which he intended to sell. According to his account, he hid in a concealed spot, waiting for the right moment, when he suddenly saw two adult priests entering the monastery grounds. He observed what transpired afterward for quite some time. The thief's statements aligned with some of the versions that had circulated during the investigation. According to these versions, two respected clergymen, namely Fathers Thomas Couture and Jose Puthuracale, both of whom were professors at the educational institution where Sister studied, were implicated in the case. Father Thomas not only taught psychology but was also known for his role as the chancellor of the Kottayam diocese and for authoring numerous theological books. News of his alleged involvement in the case was expected to have a significant impact on his ecclesiastical career and to cause a major crisis for the Catholic Church, which had recently been embroiled in a series of scandals. The CBI continued its investigation, and eventually, the name of a third alleged participant in the crime became known. This was Sister Sephi, one of the nuns at the monastery, who was only a few years older than Sister Abaya at the time of her death. In July 2007, the court granted permission to the CBI to subject the three suspects to narcoanalysis, also known worldwide as truth serum. This procedure involves the administration of a chemical to induce a semi-conscious state during which the subject may reveal information. The tests were conducted on August 3, 2007, but the results did not yield any new facts to clarify the situation. Soon after, circumstances emerged suggesting a possible manipulation of the test results. On November 19, 2008, 16 years after Sister Abaya's death, the authorities arrested Fathers Thomas and Jose, as well as Sister Sefi. A few days after their arrest, the assistant inspector who had prepared the very first report during the initial investigation was found dead. The police stated that he had taken his own life by slashing his wrists and consuming poison. In his suicide note, he mentioned pressure from the Central Bureau of Investigation staff. The CBI representatives, in turn, claimed that he had destroyed evidence and had thus reclassified the case as a suicide. According to the investigation, just moments before her death, Sister Abaya went into the kitchen without making a sound. She then took a bottle from the refrigerator and headed to the sink to splash her face with cold water. It was at this moment that she witnessed a scene that shocked her to the core. She was so taken aback by what she saw that the plastic bottle slipped from her hands and fell to the floor, spilling some of its contents. The young novice unintentionally became a witness to a secret intimate encounter between the priests mentioned earlier and Sister Sefi. The police report suggested that upon noticing Sister Abaya, the priests got frightened that she might expose them. As a result, Father Thomas lunged at the novice, grabbing her by the neck and trying to silence her, while Sister Sefi took an axe that was always in the kitchen and delivered several swift but not overly forceful blows to the victim's head. Authorities believe that after this attack, Sister lost consciousness and collapsed on the kitchen floor. The attackers then removed her body from the monastery and dumped it into the well. The exact role of Father Jose in this incident remains unknown, although some believe he assisted the others in disposing of the body. Ultimately, the attackers hastily fled the crime scene, unaware that someone was watching them from the shadows. The silent witness to this murder was none other than the thief, who years later revealed all. As a result, 2 priests and a nun were charged with murder and destruction of evidence. Soon, a lengthy and complex legal battle began. In March 2018, Father Jose was acquitted by the court due to a lack of sufficient evidence against him. Father Thomas and Sister Sefi remained the only accused. During the protracted trial, disturbing facts came to light, such as the operation to restore the hymen that Sister Sefi underwent, attempts to prove her innocence, and the absence of sexual contact. These details became known through a folder of documents that confirmed the operation was performed at the monastery's hospital with the consent of religious authorities. Interestingly, this folder allegedly anonymously fell into the hands of the investigators. It's worth noting that virginity tests were not conducted on the nun, as the very idea of such tests violated her right to privacy. On August 26, 2019, the much-anticipated trial for the murder of Sister Abaya commenced. Given the religious and even political implications of this case, as well as the circumstances of the victim's death, the trial against Father Thomas and Sister Sefi remained in the headlines of the Indian press. During the court proceedings, almost all the prosecution witnesses changed their testimonies and stood in defense of the accused. The only person who did not yield to pressure was the thief who had witnessed the crime, and he stuck to his initial statements. On December 22, 2020, amidst the peak of the pandemic, 28 years after Sister Abaya's body was discovered, the court found 69-year-old Father Thomas Kadower and 55-year-old Sister Sefi guilty of murder with aggravating circumstances. The clergymen were sentenced to life imprisonment and fined 500,000 rupees. Upon hearing the verdict, Sister broke into tears, while Father Thomas maintained the same expression he had throughout the trial. Nuns in the courtroom also wept and rushed to embrace the priest and sister after the verdict was delivered. During the sentencing hearing, the defendants requested clemency from the court, citing their serious illnesses. Father Thomas had been diagnosed with prostate cancer, and Sister Sephi suffered from deep vein thrombosis. Among other things, Sister's lawyer added that she needed to take care of her elderly parents. However, the pleas of the accused were not granted by the court, which announced their sentences after hearing them. Leaving the court, Father Thomas told reporters that he was innocent. According to him, everything happens according to God's plan, and he has nothing to fear. Sister Sephi, on the other hand, chose to remain silent. Unfortunately, Sister Abaya's parents, who had tirelessly sought the truth for many years, passed away in 2016 without seeing justice in this case. Despite the guilty verdict, the case of Sister Abaya was far from over. In June 2022, Indian media reported that the defendants' lawyers had successfully appealed the verdict and secured their temporary release on bail pending a retrial. In the defense's appeal, it was argued that the trial was riddled with irregularities and that the verdict was based on the testimony of an unreliable witness. The release of the prime suspects in the murder of the young nun left a bitter taste for the victim's family and all those who had fought for justice in this case. More than 30 years have passed since that early morning when Sister Abaya, who had only dreamt of serving others, lost her life under mysterious circumstances. The final chapter in this case, which cast a shadow over the Catholic Church in India, has yet to be written.